Right, so we're progressing through a set of steps. There's a process in not just academic but all writing and research, from formulating a question to locating sources that will shed some light on it, evaluating the merits of them, and the next step is getting inside them and getting the argument out. So there's a couple of things I want to do in this process. There's a number of, it's a very practical task, and there's a number of readings, but there isn't really a heavy discussion question on them. There is one reading, which is the preface to a book on mind mapping. You should read that first. That's a very good introduction, and will give you an overview very solidly of the field. There are two other articles you can read later, if you can get time to read them between now and Monday, and we'll have a little quiz on Monday and start the discussion going with that. So try and get to at least one of them. But what I want you to do is locate a scholarly article. So use Google Scholar or the library search engine to find an article on your topic, preferably one with some good headings, well organized, one with a decent literature review section and a good discussion or conclusion section. I want you to download that and annotate it. You can get it down as a PDF. So there's any number of tools that will annotate PDFs. Find, and if you don't already have one on your laptop, use whichever one you fancy. Use multiple colors to highlight it. Separate argument from evidence. Maybe highlight in a different color things that are interesting or confusing about it. Focus on the literature review and the discussion. Don't worry about method sections. Then grab any free mind mapping tool that you happen to like. Also, there's a couple. FreeMind is old but free. The interface isn't quite as slick. The free versions of XMind and the free versions of SimpleMind are perfectly adequate for what we're doing here, so you could use one of those. And I want you to mind map the argument that you've highlighted out of the reading. And then grab screenshots from the highlighted PDF and of the mind map and share them here with your thoughts on the process. One of the things this does is it moves us away. Well, it moves us several steps down the road away from huge chunks of text, which, as I have remarked, is problematic. You're not trained or experienced or accustomed to reading academic articles or raw academic material of any sort. So you need to work out how to identify the elements of argument and the supporting evidence and pick out the core of the argument where it's interesting and make use of it and make it your own. So this is an article. It's one of the evaluation articles from the British Journal of Education Technology. So it's about evaluation. And I've skipped down to the literature review. The introduction of this particular article is not the most fantastic introduction. But what I want to find here is, so the literature review in this paragraph, growing body of research. Okay, so research governing the credibility of under online. Well, you see, this is the thematic thing. What this has shown, actually, find it difficult to select appropriate sources. Okay, that's not, it's kind of, well, let's put it in yellow. Right. More generally, they have difficulty justifying their evaluations of trustworthiness. Well, this is exactly what you're doing. You are evaluating the trustworthiness of websites. This is a development of this idea. Further, while there is evidence that young people seek to undertake evaluation of sources, they are not always confident in their credibility judgments. So obviously that is also develops this argument that I've highlighted in yellow. And they are sometimes find expertise difficult to determine. Okay, so there's a classic paragraph. Essentially, it's got a statement. Young people find it difficult to judge, select appropriate and trustworthy health information. And then there's 3 points that expand on it. Difficulty judging their evaluations of trustworthiness, lack of confidence in their credibility judgments, and find it difficult to determine the expertise and trustworthiness of the websites. So there's 3 distinct points there, although they may sound similar, but they are different. Next paragraph, research into credibility and trust judgments focuses on the factors that people use in their evaluations. A large scale, so factors that people use. Okay, so factors that people use in their evaluations. Fortunately, we are very lucky in both of these paragraphs, the key point is in the first sentence. Not all academic writing is well structured. If you can't find the key point in a paragraph, it may be that the person who's writing it hasn't laid it out well. So, again, we have study themes most associated with credibility design were, where are we? Here we go. So, why is this not? Design, information structure, and information focus. I don't know what they mean by information focus. I think I know, but I'd have to go back and look at the article. Somebody else, Cillian, Briggs, Harrison, Fishwick, found the factors contributing to patient selection and trust of health website included design and content. No, I don't want the definition thing. I'm doing this markup in the preview tool, which is built into macOS. Okay, so that again is another list of factors. Hargitay, Fullerton, Marchani found that for first-year undergraduate students, it's just people like you, the most important factors in the credibility were identifiability of information, currency, other sources, authorship, and linking sites. That's a very comprehensive list of things which first-year undergraduates apparently were interested in. How many of those have you got in your criteria? How many of those are important to you? So, the next paragraph, again, some consensus. So there's some consensus. The discrepancy between the finding of different studies suggests user characteristics. Now, that doesn't flow nicely from the previous paragraph, but I think I see where they're going. Domain knowledge. So poor domain knowledge leads to irrelevant websites, etc., right? Poor domain knowledge, not knowing anything about the domain. Domain experts spend more time defining the problem. Okay, so it's, again, they're talking about the level of knowledge people have, and they're defining 2 different types of people. And activating their prior knowledge. That's the kind of second half of that point. Spend more time defining the problem and using their knowledge of the field. Use more complex queries. Use more complex queries. Whole list of things here that experts do which novices don't do, right? So again, you've got a point. User characteristics, the type of user makes a difference to how people search for the web. And they talk about the poor ones, and then they've got a whole list of things that experts use when they're searching in their field of expertise. Okay, so what this is showing you is how to break down the structure, how to read the structure of well-organized paragraphs. You don't necessarily need all this stuff in green. That's the supporting evidence. The important thing is the argument. That people find it difficult to select trustworthy websites, that there's a range of different factors that people use in their evaluations. Different types of users approach the problem differently. Those are the big heads of the argument so far on this section, and the other bits are the supporting evidence or the detail, right, that build up to and support that. Okay, so the thing about it is, of course, that it's very much actually like good academic writing, clear academic writing, is very much like the old formula for writing essays in the leaving certs. 3 facts and a date. Boom. You know. Character of Hamlet. 3 quotations about the character of Hamlet. And if you get that right, then you can build more elaborate styles. But it's important to understand how it's put together so that you can write it, but also so that you can read it, so that you can pull it out there and look for what the important points are and not get bogged down reading. You can go back and chase the references. You can go back and look about who these people were if you need to, if there's a point they've made that is interesting or looks complicated. or that you want to follow up on in more detail. So that's the first thing. I haven't unmarked anything there as unclear or interesting. I would use different colors for that. Okay. What do I want to do? I want to do the mind mapping. So here we go. I want to. This is the. I have Simple Mind Pro. I'm going to start a new map, and this is going to be with a blank. That's an old blank map that's open. So I'm actually going to call this Annotate 2020B because the other one didn't save properly. The video didn't save. So here's a new mind map. And what was the article? It was evaluation, wasn't it? The name of which I haven't remembered, but we could put it in there, right? So the article is well structured. So I know it has an abstract. It's a good idea to break out the headings. I know it has a lit review, where they review the existing literature and what the state of the field is. I know it has a methodology section. I cheated and looked earlier. It has a methodology section, which we won't look at because it's got a lot of statistics in it. It's got a discussion where they discuss the outcomes of the research and explain the relationship between the prior research and what they've discovered. So we're going to slide up here in the literature review. Okay, I'm going to just slide this over here. So in part of the literature review, we have 3 paragraphs here. We have, these are the first 3 paragraphs of it. So the question now is how do we make this difficult to find? Okay, so I guess difficult to find good sources. So I'm paraphrasing slightly here. And can't trust own evaluations. Lack confidence in their judgments and find expertise difficult to determine. Sorry, we're going to go back here. Lack judgments. It's only fair. Yeah, it's a perfectly normal thing when you're. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, find expertise. How do we know who's an expert? Right, so there's the 3 points from that are supporting that paragraph. Here, I'm just going to drag this all up here. I've zoomed in quite a bit here to make this. Okay, so that'll go there. Here we're going back to this one. What's the next paragraph? Factors that people use. Oh, there's lots of points here. Now, so here, I'm not going to list all of these. Each of the different design, appearance, layout, I'm just going to pick out some of these because there's a lot of them. And in fact, under design, I'm actually going to do a bit of regrouping while I'm at this. I'm going to make appearance a separate thing. And I'm going to make layout a separate thing. Those maybe should be the same thing, but not necessarily. What other things were there? Interactivity, clear language, see, I'm kind of thinking here how these group together. Identifiability of information, currency, sources for validation. So ID, info, easily, I'm paraphrasing again. How recent is it? Currency means current, as in now. So how recent is it is a paraphrase of that. Other sources for validation. A whole list of things there, right? Boom, factors that people use in, and then the other paragraph that we have here was about user characteristics. And the argument on user characteristics was broken into two. Here, I'm going to drag methodology down there. Was, we'll call them novice users. To use the word poor, we'll call them novice users. And they have also got bits about experts. Right, and some of the points about expert users, for example, were that expert users use prior knowledge. And there was a point there that expert users have more elaborate queries. Okay, there's a bunch of other points about expert users. So there we go. Now, I'm not necessarily going to copy them all in. What have we got here? This is slightly messy. Let me zoom out. Okay, so we can map the whole article and we can have it so that the large bits, we can actually change things in the mind map. You can make it's a hierarchical breakdown of the article. You can make the topics closer to the center in most mind mapping tools bigger. You can change the color of entire parts of the map. So we can go here and we can say, oh no, not that one. Let's take this one and let's make this green. There you go. And when you change the color of a node, all its children inherit that color, which is kind of handy. You could make the mapping match. I'll not actually do that because that's not the best choice of color because it kind of clashes with our color scheme. So there we go. But you could make the different layers in the map match the color scheme that you used in highlighting. Okay. So what this does is it very quickly lays out and gets a very clear visualization. What are the different parts of the argument? So some of these stack up. All of these, appearance, layout, interactivity, are kind of part of the design of pages. I could probably group the other stuff under some other sort of heading about information design if I wanted to. So in fact, let's just put in the word information. And all I'm going to do then is just for demonstration, let's take this and let's make it a different blue, purple, that'll be fine. Sorry, didn't select that. Yeah, oh, terrible color, right, don't care. Not interested in the color, looking at the information architecture. So if I decide I want to group things into that, then I can take this and I can drag it over here and drag it on top of that and it links. Sometimes you have to do the linking manually, sometimes it'll do the linking automatically, depending on the tool. Whoops. And it kind of, you may have to manually rearrange things. But there you go. So we've now split this into design and what I would call information architecture factors that people use. Okay? And you could link these to the different types of users. Experts would be more aware of, where is this? Boom, that will link that too. Experts, woohoo, cross-linking, right? So that will allow you, this is not as clear as it might be, this is a quick first pass, but well done and with a little bit of juggling, you have a number of things here. You're getting a number of different cues on the knowledge. One is you can use color, which works for some people, both in the annotation and here. The other is you have a structure. I tend to go with the circular, with the big idea or the article title in the middle, and then the major headings, and then the subheadings. So the farther out you get, the deeper into the detail you get, and the core of the argument is towards the center. Right? And that makes it easier to visualize the information and see how the article is laid out. And you can do that to a certain extent. It's almost best to do, the less thinking you do about the content of the article, the more, let's just get this on the map. And then you can sit back and look at it and go, okay, yeah, now I see what it's going, where it's about, right? So it gets away from these huge walls of text. Because if you're looking at it, as this case is, I think it's a 16-page article, and you're trying to wade through all of this, and it's like, yeah, you're doing this much reading of stuff in this article, then, by the time you start to hit the methodology section and hit the stats and the data analysis, you're going to give up, and you're not going to get the discussion and the conclusions, right? So there is, yes, we've fallen into the discussion there. These are the conclusions. And these conclusions should presumably, it looks like this was done over 3 years, so it should show increasing sophistication of judgment over the time period, right? Yeah, that's what this one does. And then there's recommendations. So these are the important parts of the article. If we were interested in research methods, we'd be reading the methodology, but we're not worried about that at the moment. So I want you to do the annotation, flex your colorful annotation skills and get a screenshot of that, and find a mind mapping tool and get a screenshot of that, and share those in the discussion thread with a comment on how you found it, particularly if you've never done it before. Try to keep it to between 2 and 3 hours. Do not let it become a time sink. Okay, one of the things about this is you need to get comfortable with picking a digital tool, either a PDF annotation tool or a mind mapping tool, and having a go to see how it works. And working out very quickly, do you like the interface here? Does this work for you? No, go and find a different one, right? And also trying to get into the habit of getting through an article and reducing the amount of time you spend, sweating over every little word. If there's terms you don't understand, mark them and come back to them. Does it make a whole difference to your understanding of the article? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but mark it and carry on and then come back, So it's very much a slash and burn approach to help you get faster at doing this. There's a number of other things, of course, about this. One thing that is important about this is if we take this and I go, I want to do edit, I want to do copy. I can copy it as an image, I can copy it as an outline. I'm going to copy the whole thing as an outline. I think this is right. I'm going to go to here where I have a blank Google document, and I'm going to paste. Aha, there we go. Yes. What is this in this Google document? It is the mind map copied and pasted as an indented outline. So if you had mind mapped 3 articles and then rearranged the content together into one mind map, and then you paste that in, you have an outline for writing. Obviously you want to carry your notes and your references along with you and stuff, but hey, this is short circuits and reduces that process of planning very rapidly and gets away from doing it in huge walls of text and massive piles of notes and PDFs that you've only partly read, and that then suddenly it's the night before something is due in and you're trying to wade through all of this and turn it into text. So it's about managing that process better, but it's also about some other stuff. There's a whole range of tools. This is a much longer article. It's 60 something pages, so I'm not going to give it to you to read. This tool on this page is Debate Graph. There's about 37 tools in this article, and a lot of them died or were poorly built. They were a research project that wasn't finished. Some of them, Debate Graph still exists, and it allows you to graph the arguments in a debate, obviously. And it gets used quite a lot, and it's an interesting website. Getting the stuff out of it, big problem. They may have improved it recently, but it's really hard, or was in the past, to actually get, if you built a map of an argument in it, then getting that out into some other format was tough. But it certainly allowed you, the map view and the text view, and you could switch from one to the other, and it provided a structure and a set of tools for noting how the debate was built up in terms of an argument. And that's important because what we do now have is a number of tools for mapping arguments. So this is the class structure, as it says, of the scholarly discourse ontology. We use ontologies a lot in the digital world as a means to structure things and explore the relationships between them. And this is essentially a standards. There's the argument interchange format. These are defined standards. So they're easy to use, and it's easy to move from one to the other. And it provides you with a fixed defined vocabulary when you're taking an argument apart for expressing things like whether something proves something or refutes it or is evidence for or is an example of or is a subclass of something or is identical to or similar to or different to. And then there's the whole realm of causality. So this provides you with a tool for expressing an argument in a clear format, which can actually, using semantic web query languages, be expressed as a graph. And it can also be interchanged, or bits can be copied and shared, or manipulated digitally. So that's a sort of deeper layer and a more complex part of the process. But that is where this mapping and visualization of knowledge will eventually lead. And it is becoming increasingly important. So let's do that bad thing that I do when I go to, let's find connected papers. And let's look at, okay, it's quicker to take one of the graphs that they've already done. This is a collection of scholarly papers and the connections between them mapped as a graph. So what this tool does is, and you can take any one of these, so we can take this one, and you can see what papers are related, but you can also, and you can see, don't know if it'll come across, you can see how the links go, but you can also pick one. So let's pick this one, and you can click the button, and it'll dig up the paper, and it'll build a graph based on that paper. Sorry, there you go. There's the graph of the other paper. This is what the semantic web sets out to do. Map and visualize the relationships between knowledge to make it easier, for instance, in traversing huge amounts of knowledge about, say, the coronavirus, to find related papers, to find papers that are related based on a particular gene sequence, a particular treatment, all this sort of stuff. These are the things which make it possible for us to use digital tools to explore complex knowledge faster. Now, this is PhD grade stuff, right? But this is every day you can do this, and this is you can do this, and you can think about what these relationships mean. These are argument relationships. This is an example of, or a subset of, the design issue. These are things which expert users do. You could use these as, you could build a categorization system to identify expert users based on their behavior if they did these things. And these would constitute evidence that somebody, if you studied their search behavior, was or was not an expert in a particular area. So it allows you to manipulate these things. So it's fun, it's interesting. People have been doing this for me for too many years, right? And we normally get it done in a week. It's not a problem. Really fast people can get it done in an hour. That's quite brisk, okay? But give it 2-ish. Don't let it drag on any longer. That will probably give you enough to explore this, and then you can go back and have a go at it again. We will be doing more of this, okay? So this is just the first run, shallow end of the pool. Muck around with it, do the best you can. We'll have a look and see. I'll show you some interesting stuff that has happened in the past and that has come out and that it's thrown up, particularly the annotation stuff. I have collections of papers where like 10 people annotated the same page, and you can look at them as little thumbnails and see the differences. Must dig that out. We'll have a look at that Monday, and it'll tell you a lot about how people read. So, have a go. Think about what you like and how you do or do not like about it. Um, there's no wrong answers because you're all going to do these differently. That's fine. It is not getting the right answer, it is the journey in this case that is important.